Welcome to ADHD Whiskey. My name is Matt. Today I am talking about and tasting the two March releases from Barrel King that will be made available to their gold members this month. Full transparency, if you did not know, I am employed by Barrel King. I am their chief tasting officer and master blender. And I like to shoot these tasting videos every month to let the gold members know what they're in for, what type of treats they're in for, while also letting all you potential members know what you're missing out on. If these pours I'm about to dive into sound good to you, then you can become a Barrel King Gold member by clicking on the link in the description below. Also, spoiler alert, I am currently working on my very first Barrel King blend as their master blender and chief tasting officer. It's currently in the works and is scheduled to be released in April. But that's all future stuff. Today we're tasting batch 79 and 80, put together by Jared himself, the main man over in Bourbon, Missouri. And first up is batch 79. Batch 79 falls under the Barrel King Knighted label, which means that the whiskey in this glass was finished in rare ex-bourbon casks. In the case of batch 79, Jared blended 6-year low rye MGP bourbon and then got a little experimental with some finishing barrels. This particular batch spent some time in barrels from Heaven Hill, barrels from Jim Beam that used to hold Booker's, Willet bourbon barrels, and Wild Turkey barrels that held Russell's Reserve. So after this blend got manipulated by all those rare ex bourbon barrels, it got bottled and is ready for a March release. If I did not mention before, this is a 114 proof bourbon whiskey. All right, let's go in for a nose, batch 79. You can tell based off the first sniff that this is a new twist on the Knighted line. That those used ex-bourbon barrels that this whiskey touched did have a significant influence and put a unique twist on Barrel King Knighted. Wow. Every time I go in for a nose, it's something different. The first smell that I smelled was like orange peel or orange oil. Could it possibly be a tangerine or a tangelo maybe? Possibly. There's a tinge of what I would consider to be a cherry smoke or maybe like a cherry char, a burnt cherry aspect to it. It's not quite smoke, but it's like a seared cherry. We'll say a seared cherry. Fruit stripe gum before it loses its flavor. And then hiding under all of that is a bit of floralness. Floralness? That's not a florality? Floroptics? Floranthropy? There's some flower action. What type of flower? I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's not the kind you bake with. It's the kind you pin to your prom date, hoping not to puncture her breast. A very inviting, sweet, and complex nose. All right, batch 79, down the hatch. Yep, that is good. That's one oily bugger. That's my first sip of whiskey for the day, so I don't want to get too caught up in being like, that's amazing, because we all know the first sip of whiskey for the day, you can't trust it. The first sip will play sneaky games, like your cousin playing 7 Seconds in Heaven with your girlfriend on your birthday. Second sip. This is so good. This is right up my alley. The oiliness of this whiskey, the viscosity, the mouthfeel, as people call it, is the true star of this blend. The palate is very velvety and creamy, and it hits on all my tongue's pleasure sensors. This tastes like a super traditional, just rock solid home run bourbon. It has your caramelized sugars. It has an oaky characteristic to it, but it's not a prominent oak note that's shouting it from a rooftop or even a second-story balcony. It's just tied really well into this soft and creamy bourbon cake roll. If Little Debbie made a Swiss cake roll in America and it was called an American cake roll because you can't make bourbon in Switzerland, there's a little cotton candy note I get on there as well. It's almost like a fluffy cotton candy, like mid-palate. Batch 79 is fantastic. It's really weird making these videos as a whiskey reviewer because I work for Barrel King and then I'm talking about their releases. So when I'm tasting these, I'm trying to be as objective as possible, or subjective, whatever the right word is. I'm trying not to let the fact that Jared blended these influence me, and I'm sure that at one point I'll get something that Jared likes that I don't, or you know, that is a home run for them, but for me it's like being tagged out sliding into first. But so far, everything I've tasted from Barrel King has been what I would consider to be a very good to great whiskey. This is no exception. Batch 79 is friggin' awesome. It is an oil monster. It's like Swamp Thing came out of an oil patch, a bourbon oil patch. And it was like, hey, any Dawn dish soap? Cause we're gonna need a bit. We're gonna need some. All right, let's move on to batch 80, which is the other release for the month of March. This one is what I would consider to be a whiskey specialty. I think that is what Barrel King considers this as well. They are very transparent about the process that they put these whiskeys through so that the consumer, the end consumer, you guys know what exactly it is that you're drinking. Jared has a bit of a history putting together some bonkers batches of Barrel King whiskey. And this batch 80, titled Chocolate Cherry Stag Bourye, is a great example of how creative and experimental Jared and the team at Barrel King can get when they want to put something out that is a little bit outside of the box and not necessarily a straight rye or a straight bourbon, but instead something a bit more fun and possibly appealing to even a wider audience, a sexier audience maybe. Maybe a sexier audience, because they say that this is a sexy story. And if you know anything about me, I am definitely all ears. So Jared took 1 barrel of stag finished bourbon and he blended that with a rye whiskey that was finished inside of a port barrel that once held cherry plum cider. Then there was another barrel of bourbon. This bourbon was finished in a port cask, but that port cask also at one point held heirloom champagne style apple cider. What is that? I have no idea. I don't know. But I know that those 2 port barrels were sourced from the same place. Then 2 barrels of 8-year MGP bourbon got blended in, and then the final touch. Jared built his own hot chocolate cherry barrel. He used filthy cherries and melted Oaxacan chocolate. Oaxacan. So melted Oaxacan chocolate and filthy cherry juice were put inside of a barrel and spun around, filled with bourbon, and then dumped and blended in to those other bourbons and ryes that I just talked about. So that all sounds good and well. Now let's find out if it smells and tastes all good and well. All right, batch 80, sexy chocolate cherry wonderness. Here. Wow, that smells really good. Based off of the nose, it smells like a delicious bourbon, but then there's like this rye note that's kind of coming out of there as well. You can kind of pick up on the rye a little bit, but overwhelmingly it smells like a delicious friggin' bourbon. If I were to smell this not knowing that part of it was inside of a barrel that had chocolate and cherries in it, would I know that based off of the nose? No. But with that being said, it smells remarkable. I pick up on this delicious oaky bourbon. I also pick up on some rye spice, but then when I go back to it, the third nosing, I'm picking up on some of that port barrel. It smells super good, super rich, super sweet. Now let's put it down the hatch so it can meet batch 79 that I just tasted. Down the hatch. Wow, that's freaking good. Yeah. Wow. As much as I love batch 79, I think batch 79 is crazy good. This 80, this chocolate cherry thing, wow. It's super sweet in a super sweet bourbon way. It's not super sweet like Ben & Jerry's way. You would never know that this touched a barrel with chocolate and cherries. But knowing that, you can kind of put it together. There is like this cherry hot, chocolatey, bourbony, delicious, viscous friggin'. That's good. It's 114 proof, and this would go so well with some chocolate. If you sipped this while eating chocolate, you would be in heaven, Kevin. I am going to recommend Jared send that into a spirits competition for whatever category that fits in. If it's like a distilled spirit specialty, that is a double gold, triple gold, platinum, double platinum. That is ridiculous. The description and the label kind of speak for itself. That's kind of what you're getting here, but it's much more of a bourbony rye experience than you would think it is based off of the label. It's like the best Burai with an additional like chef's kiss on the end. That is, damn, that's good. I'm gonna put this in a blind flight with like some of the best whiskeys I have to see how it fares, because this is like right up there. Gold members, Barrel King, March, you're going to be so pleased because batch 79, awesome, unique in its own way. Batch 80 is like, what the heck? That's gonna do it for this video. This took me way longer than I thought it would. I need to edit it and put it out today. So I'm gonna say goodbye. Again, link in the description below. If you want to become a Barrel King Gold member, damn, another couple awesome bottles from Jared. Hopefully my April batch can like hold its own against these things because these are crazy good. Thank you for watching. My name is Matt. This is ADHD Whiskey. Like I always say, keep your head in the clouds, but your mind on being creative, thinking outside the box, and you know what? Making people happy. And that's what this chocolate cherry thing does for me. I'm gonna actually have my wife try this. Is she allergic to alcohol? I think so. She breaks out in a rash all over her chest and gets extra itchy, and like, it's weird every time she drinks anything. But I'm gonna try to get her to try this because I think she might really, really like it, because I friggin' like it. And I have a sweet tooth. Not for very much longer though. For about 6 more days. Then I'll have no teeth. Goodbye.